So I would say the more successful ideas and the more successful founders are the ones who can narrow it in to something to start with, right? Especially in digital, because like I said, you just picture an app or a software. It's not like a physical shoe that, you have to think through everything and ship it. Now it's in the, you can change it. It's a lot. You can change it in flight. And so I think a lot of founders, they overthink it instead of getting something out there and learning from that. And so, sometimes, a lot of mistakes, or people come in, the idea is too big and they're like, we're going to take 2 years and build the first version. And then we're going to try selling it. That's not how digital is done.
Yeah.
So concepts like, an MVP and a beta, and these are very important ones to really allow you to vet your product market fit. Yeah. And I think having an idea too big is a problem.
Yeah.
And the people that, and this is, I would say this for any business, candidly. Even when I started Innovatemap, big 10-year vision for what it could potentially be. But that isn't how I started.
Yeah.
We had to start somewhere. And so I would say that focus is a winning recipe for starting any business. It's imperative if you're starting a digital business.
Yeah.
We have probably worked in about 50 different industries. So I would say our expertise is pretty applicable across industry. And then the industry expertise is what the client is bringing to the table. And what we're bringing to the table is really the digital product expertise. So, I would say all over the place with industry. I will say this though, if it is a B2C or consumer-based industry, our value is even higher. Okay. And what I mean by that is if your product or your idea is, in a consumer space, where, the user expectation on usability, marketability is very high. It's a very crowded space. Consumers are really having to make decisions. They're making buying decisions on their own. They're not attending training. They're not, clicking on help. And so, if you've got an idea that is in the consumer space, our value is very high. We had a pretty standard dinner table. I'm one of four. So it was my parents, my older brother, younger brother, and my little sister. And great conversation. I will say, my sister was the youngest. The males would dominate the conversation quite often. The only reason I say I vividly remember my dad commenting how it flipped when we all had the older three boys had left. But good conversation, good laughter. But we did a family dinner quite often. In hindsight, I think it was probably 5 or 7 nights a week.
Wow.
Which is probably unheard of these days.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. And what were did your parents have their own companies or any type of entrepreneurial? Were you exposed to entrepreneurialism early on? Or?
Yeah, I was not. And in fact, I'm from, actually I was born with an opposite DNA. So I'm from the south side of Chicago, a very, very hardworking, loyal area. In fact, the mantra was you kind of worked for a company, gave them your all till you retired with them 30 years later.
Yeah.
And I would say that, even today, that still exists. I was not raised around entrepreneurship. And, when I got exposed to it was not until my professional career.
Okay.
And then that's probably where it started to, present itself to me, and I looked upon it very favorably when it did get presented to me, but it was not in my upbringing.
And talk a little bit about that exposure. What was, how was it presented to you? What was the context of that conversation? How did you come across, starting your own company, and why did you think that was something that you wanted to tackle?
Well, here the funny one, and I do love saying this, I didn't realize it was never a dream of mine. Like I didn't realize it. I started my own company when I was 37. Probably never imagined doing so until I was 36.
Okay.
And just to kind of dive into that a little bit more, I worked for a big company out of school. And then I moved to Indianapolis in 2000 for a tech startup. And that was my first exposure to entrepreneurship, having admiration for the two founders of the startup. I fell in love with that speed and size of the company.
Yeah.
And, and then just really had looked at those two founders with just admiration, but not like, oh, I want to do that someday. Just looked at them with respect. In fact, I tell a lot of people, I always thought that I was a great number two.
Okay.
That was my role. I always thought to whoever was, whoever I reported to, I was going to be their go-to, right? And I obviously later in my career, I was I was executive. I was leading product at Primo 12 years later, and still had that mentality.
Yeah.
So I always kind of had admiration for the entrepreneur, but never thought that was my calling. What kind of turned it around was, so the software company I was with, we did get acquired. Mm-hmm. And there was a real, the 3 years post-acquisition, there was a maturation in my professional career where I was getting more and more opportunities, but I was once again placed in a big company. Mm-hmm. And really started feeling confident about my ability to build a team, find a team, perform. I just started de-risking things. Along the way where it didn't seem as scary. It was more personal risk than it was professional risk, if you will.
Right.
But what overwhelmed me, and I tell this quite a bit, is the idea of Innovatemap and what to do really consumed me and pushed me over the edge to take that risk. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So do you think that it was sort of, I guess, getting out of your own way? You put up these mental barriers in your own mind, like, I can't do that. I can't, I don't know how to create my own team. Like you just mentioned, you started getting conscious, or you start becoming consciously aware that, I can do that. I can, create my own teams. I can pull those things together. And once you sort of got over that mental block that you had, that I couldn't do this, that kind of opened up the doors to you that, hey, you know what? I might be able to start my own company. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. I would say, and I'm going to use like silly math here, but if there's like 12 things you need to do mm-hmm. to run your own company, by the time I had reached 37, I felt very confident in about 8 of those 12 things.
Okay. What are those 12 things?
Hiring, building a team, hard skill competency, like what Innovatemap is a service of what I had previously become expertise in my craft is probably a better way of saying that. But there were things I had done. I hadn't, there was a lot of legal. I never sold.
Yeah.
Obviously the risk and liability with owning your own business. Those were the things that I had to face, and they started to present themselves honestly as a challenge to me. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. They almost excited me more than they. Where if you're, I highlight those things because a lot of people who say they want to be an entrepreneur, I don't know, I almost kind of de-risked a little bit of the risk by just having some professional experience that made me feel more confident about going about it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think a lot of people kind of get stuck. They want to be an entrepreneur because they see all the glitz and glamour side of it. But then, when you get down into the minutia and the weeds and all the things that you got to slog through, that kind of shies people away, but it sounds
totally. Yeah. Totally. I like to make a distinction between entrepreneurial and an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. Where like, I feel like entrepreneurial is the spirit of, I want to create, I want to run. Mm-hmm. And you can get that. You can get an entrepreneurial experience in many places.
Yeah.
Where an entrepreneur, the difference is risk. The guts. And so like, I find a lot of people want to scratch the itch of entrepreneurial spirit. I want to run something very ill-defined. I want to own it.
Yeah.
But maybe the risk of, jumping with no net.
Yeah.
Isn't for them.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of really the difference to me when I think of like an entrepreneurship. It's you might be romanced by the idea. Mm-hmm. Oh, it sounds great. I'd love to own my own company someday, but to do so is not just taking the risk, but the grit and resiliency to get your rear end kicked.
Yeah. Yeah. And then get back up and get kicked again. Yeah. Yeah. No, completely agree. So talk about Innovatemap. What does Innovatemap do? And what types of clients do you guys serve?
Yeah, so we're a digital product agency. So first and foremost, we're focused in the digital product scene. And when I say that, I think of it as like SaaS applications, mobile apps, highly functional websites, e-commerce, things like that. So we focus with leaders who want to bring a product to life. Mm-hmm. And our specialty is the product side, which is really the strategy and the design. Mm-hmm. So kind of unpacking how I even got to that, I've always been in product. And when I say product, that's a very specific role in the digital space. You've got the technology team and the product team. And I always kind of describe the product team as, are we building the right thing? Your technology team is, are we building the thing right? Yeah. I had always played that role. That's my passion. I mean, I love product, and I love thinking through ideating new products. I love the design of not only what the product will be, but how to launch it. And what I started seeing as a trend in the early 2010s is that being the differentiation for a technical idea. Like it's table stakes that it's well built, right? You've got to get the technology and engineering right. It's of high quality, stable, scalable, and so forth. But was really putting ideas over the top is, was it usable, valuable, marketable? And you wouldn't look to the engineers for that. You would look to the product professionals, and that just happened to be my passion. So I decided, would be to do that and bring that expertise to others who needed it. So while I was playing that role at one software company, and certainly could play that role at another software company, I decided to play that role for whoever needed help in it. Mm-hmm. And I was betting on a trend that more people would need help in that. Yeah. And so we sit here today. We've been around 7 years now. We're a team of 22. And we partner with leaders, whether it be leaders in a company. We do a lot in the tech startup space, help bring their idea to life, and we're the strategy and design beside that. So making sure they built the right thing and it resonates with a buyer and a user.
Yeah. So let's say that I have a tech idea, whatever it might be. What do I need to bring to you in order for you to, start designing things? What does that process look like?
All you need is vision. All you need is vision. We will work with an idea. One of our gifts is to bring an idea that's in a founder's head and run them down that process that, 6 months later, they've got a product in market that is selling and people are enjoying using that. So a little bit, that's the hardest part of a product role, is working with a very ill-defined idea. Yeah. And candidly, that's kind of a superpower of myself and our team. So that's a very rare thing. And so that's really behind the market opportunity that I saw, which is people struggle with this. I mean, you wish you could have product excellence in the early stage, but you can't, nor should you W-2 those roles. And so that's the quandary or the business opportunity that I sought to solve. You'll hear me say a lot of times, I'll put it this way. As a product guy, I have come up with a software idea every week. Yeah. And I never left to start a company around any of those ideas. The one I actually left was for Innovatemap. And I think what I found, and I say very often, is I built the company I wish was available to me if I was going to start a tech company. Okay. And when it was through all these starts and stops of me actually starting a software company. And what was stopping me was a company like Innovatemap didn't exist. Yeah. And that's kind of like, well, heck, I'm going to go solve that market problem. Yeah. And then when that clicked, couldn't stop thinking about it. And that was the idea. And so that's what we do. So we spend a lot of time, early stage ideas, bringing it to, design strategy, how to bring it to life. But most of our business though is, I kind of call it renovations and add-ons of existing tech ideas. Yeah. Yeah. Where people don't enjoy using it. We got to go fix that, or, it's not selling well. We can go fix that. So these are problems that our firm is able to solve, and I enjoy it immensely.
Yeah. Now, do you guys do I guess there's two different sides to this. Let's start with the product that doesn't currently exist. Are you guys basically creating like an MVP of whatever software it is, or are you guys going in and taking it further and basically fully baking, fully designing that entire interface before they necessarily get out and start testing that idea, or what does that process look like as far as that's concerned?
Yeah, very good. I will tell you this with digital products today, because they're living, breathing things, you have to embrace feedback at all phases. So a lot of times our early might be, hey, I need to vet this idea, or I need to socialize this idea.
Yeah.
In which case we're not taking it all the way to code. And by the way, we do not do the coding. We partner with the leader and their technology team of choice.
Okay.
75% of the time they already have that in-house.
Yeah.
They're a technical co-founder or a full software engineering team.
Yep.
But I use a house analogy a lot of times, where like if you and your spouse want to build your dream home, we would be the architect and interior designer.
Yeah, got it.
And we would know how to speak to the construction crew.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But we're going to make sure, some of our product expertise is we're going to make sure you're building the right thing, and buyers and users are going to resonate with it. But on par with that analogy is we'll ask you things like, stay on that house analogy to make this point. Are you living in this house forever? Are you going to flip it in a year? Because I'm going to recommend features and design very differently based on that answer.
Okay.
What's your budget? What's your end game? And all these things influence design. And so sometimes it's vetting the idea. Sometimes it's, I've got the idea. I know it's vetted. I just need it designed well.
Yeah.
Any number of phases when we're happy to help.
Yeah. And so when you're going through and vetting an idea, how are you vetting that? Do you do like focus groups, or is it like, how do you go about pulling the people together that potentially would be using that product?
Yeah, great question. To unpack a little bit about our approach, there is definitely a research or vetting phase. I hesitate to use the word research because people's mind go to like a 6-month field or lab study, and that's not the digital world. But it is conversations and qualitative analysis. So, when you're trying to vet the idea, it's not survey, it's not quantitative analysis. You don't need, so you don't care about how often or how many. You're more interested in, is this solve a problem? Would you buy this? And there's certainly concepts and prototypes and demos and vision or pitch decks that can convey that in order to get the feedback. So honestly, the things I just rattled off, concept designs, prototypes, demos, presentations, once again, those are design and strategy deliverables. They're not technical deliverables. Mm-hmm. And so that's stuff that our firm specializes in. And they really help you vet an idea, socialize an idea, get feedback on the idea well early in the stage before you spend on the expensive part, which is the code.
Yeah, that makes sense. What are some common pitfalls or things that you've seen people, I guess, make at those initial early stages of things? Like I'm assuming that you've had people come with, well, you actually mentioned that you kind of go in and revamp products that you may not be selling well or may not be doing well. Yep. What are some of the common mistakes that you've seen people make, during that initial launch that did fail?
Yeah, the biggest one that comes to mind, and this is a trend of the last 5 years, and it's changed. So we've been around 7 years. When I started this, most of the startup ideas we were working with were serial tech entrepreneurs.
Okay.
Who had been there, done that before. That's probably 25% of the new ideas that come our way now.
Okay.
We are so as people, as consumers today, so seasoned and used to tech.
Yeah.
That everybody's got a tech idea. And so about 75% of the ideas we see are from someone who's never done a digital or tech play before.
Yeah.
And so the mistakes they made, most of the time, I'll be very honest, just ignorance of the journey they're embarking on.
Yeah.
So this is someone who's seen a problem in industry. Like you could be a surgeon, or you could be, work in the medical field and see a problem and say, hey, I believe there's a tech play here. I believe there's a software that could solve this problem. Well, now that is correct. I mean, I walk around with an attitude that, technology is an opportunity to solve or enrich any problem you might be seeing.
Yeah.
So it's not the idea that's so novel, but they don't understand that they're starting a tech company. So it's some of these things I'm describing: digital, SaaS. Digital products are so different than a physical product.
Yeah. And
I just see people try to bring a physical product mentality to the digital world. or a analog industry background to the digital world. And that's where most of the mistakes happen. They're sold differently, they're launched differently. How you put them together is done differently. And a lot of times we're coming in, having been there, done that, where that's really our biggest value. I mean, the design might be good, but the biggest value is we're familiar with the space. I stay on the house analogy just because it's a familiar one, but could you imagine yourself being a contractor that has been doing home remodels for 30 years, and someone comes in and says, hey, I watched a DIY video on YouTube and I think I'm going to remodel my kitchen.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The person who's been doing it would be like, okay, there's a lot of stuff you probably don't know coming into this industry. And they can almost tell you the mistakes you're about to go make. We see a lot of that. As non-tech founders are really becoming the primary for a lot of these ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. And would you say that, it sounds like these ideas are pretty well niched where they are either focusing in on a specific issue or a specific problem that they're trying to solve. I know that a lot of people that I've dealt with in the digital space, they're trying to tackle this big issue, but if they kind of focus it down into a little bit more funneled focus, they probably would be much more successful. Do you see the same thing where people are starting to focus a little bit more, or are they like way out here?
That probably would have been the second biggest mistake, is the idea is too big.
Yeah.
Hey, that's great. You got great vision, but you got to build something that comes out in 3 months. So I would say the more successful ideas and the more successful founders are the ones who can narrow it in to something to start with, right? Especially in digital, because like I said, you just picture an app or a software. It's not like a physical shoe that, you have to think through everything and ship it. Now it's in the, you can change it. It's a lot. You can change it in flight. And so I think a lot of founders, they overthink it instead of getting something out there and learning from that. And so, sometimes, a lot of mistakes, or people come in, the idea is too big and they're like, we're going to take 2 years and build the first version. And then we're going to try selling it. That's not how digital is done.
Yeah.
So concepts like, an MVP and a beta, and these are very important ones to really allow you to vet your product market fit. Yeah. And I think having an idea too big is a problem.
Yeah.
And the people that, and this is, I would say this for any business, candidly. Even when I started Innovatemap, big 10-year vision for what it could potentially be, but that isn't how I started.
Yeah.
We had to start somewhere. And so I would say that focus is a winning recipe for starting any business. It's imperative if you're starting a digital business.
Yeah. Do you have any frameworks or ideas or thoughts around how to identify what that focus should be? Again, say I have this big idea and it can solve all the world's problems, but how do I focus it in on the things that make the most sense to start with?
Yeah, I would say you're hitting on like one of the core things we do. So when you hear me say the core of our services is strategy and design, that exact thing is what our strategy services are solving. I've got big idea. I've got 200 things it could do. I've got the budget to do 30. What are the right 30 that actually achieves my goal? And what is your goal? Is it, not every goal is revenue, by the way. A lot of these tech ideas are, I got to get customers, and their product-led growth or a viral strategy, where revenue certainly comes at some point, but it's not the first thing. Sometimes it's revenue, sometimes it's customers, sometimes it's adoption metrics, but we help them think through that.
Yeah, got it. That's
definitely have frameworks and whole methodology around that.
Yeah, I kind of figured, there's always a process to, that filtering and weeding out things. So no, that's great. So what do you guys focus or specialize on any one type of industry, or is it pretty well anybody who has any type of a digital product, you guys can help?
Yeah, we have probably worked in about 50 different industries. So I would say our expertise is pretty applicable across industry. And then the industry expertise is what the client is bringing to the table. And what we're bringing to the table is really the digital product expertise. So, I would say all over the place with industry. I will say this though, if it is a B2C or consumer-based industry, our value is even higher. Okay. And what I mean by that is if your product or your idea is, in a consumer space, where, the user expectation on usability, marketability is very high. It's a very crowded space. Consumers are really having to make decisions. They're making buying decisions on their own. They're not attending training. They're not, clicking on help. And so, if you've got an idea that is in the consumer space, our value is very high.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Might make or break your idea, candidly.
Now, do you guys also work on both apps and software, or is it just specifically, is there any limitation, I guess you can say, to the digital platform?
There's not. That's why we stay generic with like digital product. And if I were to kind of even categorize probably the last 3 years, I would say 20% would be an app, like a mobile app.
Yep.
Like 50% would be a SaaS software, with the remaining being very highly functional websites.
Okay.
So think like e-commerce or a site that that is more than just a digital brochure of your company.
Yeah.
It has high functionality, in which case it's really acting more like software than it is a website.
Yep.
The client is probably going to describe it as, I need a better site, but we get to the bottom of what they're trying to accomplish with the site. There's a lot of functionality there, in which case things like UX matters, workflow. I'll give you a good example. If you're going to go to like I don't want to plug another company, but like a pizza site, you're not going to hear about the corporate office. You're probably going to go there and order.
Yeah, right.
You picture any of the pizza chains, go to their website. It's not a digital brochure about their company and their corporate headquarters and job openings. You're trying to get something done there.
Yeah. Yep. No, that makes sense. Sense. And do you guys handle all like the back end, like using that example, would you guys handle the back end where, again, say it's a national pizza chain? Well, no, you're doing the design. I'm sorry. Yeah. You're doing the design, but you would probably still, would you design the back end interface too, where, the orders are coming into some type of an interface that the local pizza place is.
Yeah. Any interface. And actually you're hitting on a great one. Many of the companies have multiple personas and multiple interfaces. I'll just use Uber as an example. There's obviously the driver interface is different than the, hey, I want to go find a ride.
Yeah, right.
And so it's very common for us to have to design persona-based interfaces for the same product idea.
Got it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So if I wanted to hire your services, do I need to have like anything in place, like logos or anything along those lines? You guys could handle all of that, branding and everything. You guys can handle all that.
Yeah, we do. So half of our team is our product brand and our product marketing team, and they're the one worried about it resonating with the audience. And then the other half of our team are product managers and product designers, and they're worried about the users. So we do all that. It's in digital. It's so interwoven. If you can think of any, the brand is so important to the opinion that you're going to have about that product. That we totally do the brand, the visual design, name, design of the application or app, as well as the go-to-market. Yeah. So how it's priced, packaged, positioned, all that. So
do you guys? That's right. You mentioned before, like launching the product go-to-market. Do you guys help with, the advertising strategy or the go-to-market strategy as well? Like what does that look like?
Yeah, it's funny. So on that side, when we go to market, we're worried about partnering with your sales and marketing teams to equip them with what in the world you just built. So we're very close to what was built. So we're more worried about things like positioning, messaging, packaging, demos, your site, how you're going to describe the product, and really leave it up to the marketing team or the marketing channel to figure out what's the right channel strategy. Whether it's I'm going to talk about this at trade shows. I'm going to do email blasts. I'm going to do that's marketing. That's a little bit different. But our work will equip them to be successful in how they're going to talk about the product.
Excellent. Yeah, Mike, this is fantastic. If somebody wanted to learn more about Innovatemap or what you guys do, what would be the best way to learn more?
Yeah, two good resources. The first one would be obviously innovatemap.com. In fact, we just, certainly during all this, we had to apply our own expertise to ourselves, and we, revamp our site to clearly describe what we do, as we can't, have as many in-person meetings to convey that ourselves. But then we also have a community. It's called Better Product, where we've got a podcast ourselves, as well as a lot of content. If they want to learn more about digital products, I think the Better Product community would be a great place. But if they want to learn more about Innovatemap, innovatemap.com.
Yeah, I love it. Mike, this is fantastic. Thank you for the time, and thank you for being on Pass the Secret Sauce.
Appreciate it. It's been great.